I am trying to put together a puzzle that has been hidden in plain sight for a very long time. This is the story of Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old woman who lived in Tucson, Arizona. Not long ago, she vanished from her home, and the whole country started talking about it. Most people saw her as a kind mother and a sweet grandmother who spent her time helping others. But as I dug deeper into the records, I found out that the woman the world knew as Nancy was only one part of the story. For more than 30 years, she lived behind a perfect mask. She was so good at hiding her true self that even her daughter Savannah, who was a famous face on television, never saw the secrets that lay beneath the surface. It was a life of shadows and silence until a mysterious package arrived at the family's front door just a few days after she went missing. That package changed everything and made the family realize they didn't know their mother at all. Nancy Guthrie was always the strong person who held her family together during hard times. Back in 1989, her husband Charles passed away suddenly from a heart attack. At the age of 47, Nancy became a widow, with 3 teenagers to raise all by herself. People in her town remember her as a very selfless woman. She turned her simple ranch house into a safe place for her kids. She worked a part-time job as a bookkeeper, helped out at her local church, and raised her children with a lot of faith. To the neighbors and the people at the grocery store, she was the perfect mother figure. She was the steady rock that allowed her daughter Savannah to grow up and become a success in the public eye. But as we are learning now, even the strongest rocks can have deep cracks hidden inside them. The first real sign that something was wrong appeared on February 6, 2026. This was only 5 days after Nancy was reported missing. A plain envelope with no return address was delivered to Savannah's apartment in New York City. Inside the envelope was an old, faded photograph. It showed a much younger Nancy standing next to a man the family had never seen before. They were standing outside a small, cozy cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico. On the back of the photo, someone had written in strange handwriting that Nancy deserved more than just secrets. The note told the family to ask about a woman named Elena. That night, the 3 siblings got on a video call together. They stared at the screen in total shock. None of them knew who the man in the photo was, and none of them had ever heard of a woman named Elena. But the date on the photo was 1992. That was 3 years after their father died. This small piece of paper was about to unlock a whole secret chapter of Nancy's life that had been buried for decades. It turns out that Nancy had been living a completely different life since the early 1990s. It all started in 1991 when she took a rare solo trip to Santa Fe for what she called a church retreat. While she was on that trip, she met a man named Victor Ramirez. Victor was a widower too, and he owned an art gallery. He was very different from Nancy's late husband. He was an artist who loved passion, freedom, and the beauty of the world. Because they both knew the pain of losing a spouse, they connected very quickly. What started as a friendship over shared loss turned into something much deeper. When Nancy went back to her home in Tucson, she went back to being the devoted mother everyone expected her to be. However, she quietly began traveling back to Santa Fe every few months. She told her children and her friends that she was attending spiritual retreats to clear her mind. In reality, she was building a second home and a second identity with Victor. He gave her a new name, Elena. He picked the name from a character in a book they both loved reading together. To Victor, Elena was the symbol of the creative and free side of Nancy that she felt she had to hide from her family in Tucson. Under this secret name, Nancy helped Victor run his art business and even started to paint her own art. By the middle of the 1990s, this double life had become very serious. Nancy even opened a small bank account in Santa Fe using the name Elena Ramirez. She would save small amounts of money from her bookkeeping job in Tucson and put it into this account to help support the art gallery. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was a bridge that connected her to this alternate world. In Santa Fe, the woman known as Elena lived a very different life. She was surrounded by artists and spent her nights having long conversations about life and beauty. She was expressive and adventurous. She was exploring parts of herself that she had kept locked away for a long time. Meanwhile, back in Arizona, she remained the dependable mother and grandmother that everyone trusted. For 30 years, these two versions of the same woman lived apart without ever meeting. It was only her disappearance in that one old photograph that forced the truth out into the light. This raises many questions that are hard to answer. Why did she feel she had to hide? Was she happy, or was the weight of the secret too much to carry? Nancy often tried to tell herself that the lying was okay. She saw that her children were doing very well. Savannah was starting her big career on TV, her daughter Annie was doing great in college, and her son Cam was finding his own way in the world. Nancy was afraid that if she told them about Victor, it would ruin the image of the loyal widow who was always honoring their father's memory. So, she kept her lives in separate boxes. Her weekends in New Mexico became the oxygen she needed to breathe. She would drive 8 hours each way, telling her family she just needed some time alone to think or to visit distant cousins who didn't really exist. Victor understood why she had to do this. He never asked her to leave her family or give up her life in Tucson. To make sure no one found out, they wrote letters to each other by hand so there would be no emails or digital records for anyone to find. Nancy kept these secret letters in a box with a heavy lock, hidden right under her bed in Tucson. By the early 2000s, as her kids got older and started their own families, Nancy had even more freedom. She would stay in Santa Fe for a week at a time. She told her family these were health retreats. Behind the scenes, she was the one who helped Victor's gallery become successful. She managed the money, organized the big art shows, and even picked out which paintings to display. She did all of this under the name Elena. The local people in Santa Fe knew her only as Victor's quiet and smart partner. No one ever thought she had a whole other life in a different state. She wore different styles of clothes, changed her hair, and spoke with more confidence. She was a different person. But as the years moved into the 2010s, things started to get difficult. Nancy began to have health problems like chronic pain and issues with her heart. She had to take medicine, and sometimes she would forget to bring it on her trips. Victor begged her to finally tell her children the truth, but she always said no. She told him that her kids saw her as a rock, and she believed that rocks aren't supposed to have secrets. Instead of telling the truth, she made her secrets even tighter. She started using burner phones that couldn't be tracked and used only cash so there would be no bank records. When Savannah's career became huge in 2012, Nancy felt very proud, but she was also terrified. She knew that because her daughter was famous, people might start looking into her own life. The pressure of living as two people started to cause her a lot of anxiety. She hid this stress behind her church work and her daily routines. Victor wanted them to live together all the time, but Nancy couldn't bring herself to leave her grandchildren behind. They would have arguments about it, but they always made up and kept going. When the world stopped during the 2020 pandemic, Nancy couldn't travel at all. She had to use secret video apps to see Victor's face. Being away from him made her feel very lonely and guilty. When the world opened back up, she visited him less often because she was getting older and more afraid of being caught. Then, on January 31st, 2026, everything went wrong. Nancy was last seen after having dinner with her family. Her garage door closed around 9:50 p.m. that night. By 2 a.m. the next morning, her heart pacemaker, which sends a signal to doctors, went silent. When the police looked at her house, they found drops of blood inside and outside. However, no windows were broken, and nothing valuable was missing from the home. At first, everyone was scared that a stranger had taken her because of Savannah's fame. But when that envelope arrived on February 6th with the 1992 photo, the investigation changed direction. The police tracked the mail back to Santa Fe. They found Victor Ramirez, who is now 80 years old. When the agents knocked on his door, he started to cry. He told them everything about their 30-year secret. He said Nancy had visited him just a few weeks before she vanished, and that she seemed very scared. She told him she felt like she was being watched, and that a strange car had been following her in Tucson. Victor showed the police the letters and the paintings she had made. One painting was called Hidden Horizons, which showed a woman looking at two different paths. The police now think that her disappearance might be because of this secret life. Maybe someone found out her secret and tried to get money from her. Or maybe someone from her past in Santa Fe followed her home. Her children are now left trying to understand who their mother really was. Savannah said that even though she had secrets, she was still their mom. But they are all wondering why she felt she had to hide for so long. They started to remember all the time she was away on a retreat and realized she was actually with Victor. The locked box that was under her bed is now missing. The police think the person who took Nancy also took that box because it held all the proof of her other life. As this story spreads across the internet, many people are talking about it. Some people think the whole thing is a lie or a fake story made by computers to get clicks. They say it is shameful to talk about a missing woman this way. Many people in the comments are angry, saying that if she was a widow, there was no reason to keep a boyfriend a secret. Others think she might have been involved in something more dangerous, like uncovering insurance fraud at her job. Some people even think the family might be involved or that she decided to run away and start a third life because she was tired of the secrets. But many others feel sad for her. They think it's a tragedy that an 84-year-old woman felt she had to live in a prison of her own making because she was afraid of what people would think. The investigation is now on its 10th day. Tips are coming in from all over the country. Victor is helping the police as much as he can, but he is heartbroken. He told the reporters that Nancy deserved to be happy without having to hide in the shadows. The police are looking into a mysterious $5,000 payment Nancy made to an account in Mexico right before she disappeared. They think this could be proof of blackmail. As the search continues, the family is holding on to hope that they will find her. They want to know the truth, even if it's not what they expected. Was Nancy Guthrie a victim of her own secrets? Or was she someone who finally got tired of playing a role and tried to escape? The answer lies somewhere between the quiet streets of Tucson and the art galleries of Santa Fe. Until she is found, her story remains a haunting reminder that we never truly know everything about the people we love, and sometimes, the biggest mysteries are the ones kept right inside our own homes.